Undertale is a game that I should have definitely played a long time ago. It is widely renowned for its beautiful score and incredible writing. Also, something of note is that when it was initially backed on Kickstarter, it raised a budget of just $50,000, and then later went on to compete at the Game Awards for categories such as Best RPG alongside games like Fallout 4, of which had a budget of nearly $120 million. The budget of Undertale is relevant to this topic. However, today I'm not going to talk about Undertale's writing or soundtrack, but instead to talk about the combat. Toby Fox, the creator of Undertale, talked to Escapist magazine back in June of 2013, in which he briefly talked about the combat system in Undertale. He said, "I feel that it's important to make every monster feel like an individual. If you think about it basically, all monsters in RPGs like Final Fantasy are the same, save for the graphics. They attack you, you heal, you attack them, they die. There's no meaning to that." Now throughout the rest of the video I want you to keep that quote in mind as we go through two separate boss encounters that happen during a run of Undertale. First, let's start with Undine. Undine is a warrior and a protector of the underground. Her job is to slay any human that makes their way into the land of the monsters. Thus, once she gets a whiff of our presence in the underground, she chases us down until we have to start an encounter with her over the threshold to the final stage of the game. Throughout the game, up until this point, she is very determined, which is a big theme in Undertale, and the NPCs of the world never miss an opportunity to build on the heroism of her character. You are set up to fight the hero of this story. This is important. Already the game has spent so much time building up this character and giving context to your actions. The way that the combat is structured in Undertale is that for every fight, you must protect the heart that is in the middle of the box below the enemy. This mechanic shares similarities to games like Enter the Gungeon and The Binding of Isaac. In the box you can move the heart in any direction using the same keys that used to walk around the world, WASD, which adds to the idea of you as the character actually dodging these projectiles in-game. However, in this fight, much like the next fight I will talk about shortly, hinders your movement. In fact, in this fight it forces you to be completely stationary for portions of it. In context, this works very well. You as the player are a small human child facing a well-equipped, well-trained and experienced monster knight. So your only hope is to be on the defensive and wear her down, counter-attacking whenever you have the chance. So we have established that the player is stationary, but what can the player do whilst the enemy is attacking? Well, you can use the shield in front of you to block incoming projectiles. This is the first time in the game that you have been given any sort of shield to protect yourself, which speaks to how powerful this enemy is. What's interesting about this fight isn't the use of the shield though, but instead the malleability of projectiles in terms of design. Edmund McMillan showed us in a documentary In the Game the Movie that it is incredibly important to design obstacles or enemies so that when you want to increase the difficulty / change things up in a level, you don't have to design an entire new enemy or obstacle that the player has to learn about and remember, but instead have the enemy come at you a different way. In the documentary, Edmund highlights the spikes and saw blades in his game Super Meat Boy, in which they sometimes go back and forward, up and down, or spin around. But in Undertale, it's the arrows. In this fight, there are 3 different types of arrows, all of which, this might be stupid to say, are arrows, all of which are the same shape and dimensions as each other. The only difference is the colour. However, that colour is important. In the game previously, we've learned that blue doesn't hurt us if we stand still. We have learned that red hurts us no matter what, but what the player has to learn for the first time in this fight is that golden arrows change direction by 180 degrees at the last minute. With multiple arrows coming at you at once at different speeds but never coming to hit you at the same time, this creates a fair yet challenging combat encounter. But more importantly, the player is never left wondering, what do I do now? This is a great lesson in design, not just from the player's perspective, as especially during combat you don't want the player to have to come across a completely unknown entity that they have to learn how to fight midway through the combat encounter. But it's important from a budgetary standpoint as well. When you pitch your design ideas in a team of people, whether it be a team of 100, 1,000 or just 10, you will have to justify the cost. Questions will be asked from the art and programming lead like, how often will these enemies that you have designed be used in the game? It may be costly from a team perspective to concept, model, texture, rig and animate this enemy. But from a programmer's perspective, they might suggest that it would be relatively cheap for them to program these scripts into the game. Then you as the designer can suggest that to make the cost more worthwhile from the artist's perspective, they could add extra clothing and foliage to the model and design colour alterations that can be changed and added in-engine, which should only take a small amount of additional time compared to the task of creating an enemy from scratch, and these alterations could be assigned to the enemy depending on what level it is in and what it can do. Maybe it can jump higher, run faster, turn invisible or whatever, but it will be coming at you a different way, almost like a new enemy. But an enemy that the player is more familiar with, and one that wouldn't cost the studio as much to make. This is further amplified by the next fight, which is against Muffet. In context, before the fight you are caught in cobwebs in Muffet's spider's den, which makes sense as to why your heart is restricted in movement yet again, but this time stuck onto one of 3 tracks that you can move between. This restriction stays like this throughout the entire fight, and with this we have now witnessed at least 2 ways in which the player is restricted in movement from just a change of colour. Then we have the spiders that are involved in the fight. They come at you from the right, from the left, slower and faster, as well as from above during one portion of the fight. Again, you don't need to teach the player what these spiders do again, you know that they do damage to you, but this time they are coming at you differently. Maybe at a different speed, or maybe there is a different amount of them on the screen at once, but you still know what happens if you get hit. Of course, Undertale's combat system is less focused on the budgetary restraints in terms of art and is maybe a bit more focused in terms of programming, as the creator Toby Fox was primarily known as a musician before this game came out, not a designer or a programmer. But what Undertale can teach us is the fundamentals of efficient design that can be carried throughout all our careers as game designers. And whether you like it or not, efficiency is a currency in the multi-million-dollar development cycles at these big and even medium-sized studios. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. It's a bit shorter than usual, but I really wanted to highlight how a budget so small in this day and age can stretch so far in terms of design. If you didn't know, I'm also an indie game developer and have my own studio called Crab Studios. If you would like to find out more about our upcoming board game, Blockers the Stacking Game, then make sure to follow us on Instagram. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.